So that transitions well into my questions about AI. And there's a lot of people who are
Yeah,
like, how does this fit in? Obviously, AI is not going away at all. It's here to stay.
agreed.
Um, I think there's obviously been a huge uptick in people just straight up writing a book on ChatGPT or whatever. Um, so before I tell
Yeah,
you my thoughts and maybe solely what you think, what do you think about it?
yeah. Okay. I have some thoughts on it. So in terms of, I still don't think that it's very good in terms of writing stuff from scratch or even editing. I've experimented with it where I've given the writing to not even just ChatGPT, but there are writing specific tools like Write. I've played around a little bit,
Hmm.
and you have it, edit this for you, and then it comes back, and you're like, you've just taken all the voice and all the interesting stuff out of my writing. So no, thank you.
Hmm.
Um, that's that's not helpful. But what I have found before is if you use it as like a very specific, almost like thesaurus or encyclopedia kind of. So I'll do things like for the heights, I would say, what are 15 reasons people would need to evacuate a building?
Hmm.
What are 10 different security systems that could be on a museum? And like just to help brainstorm some of those mechanical things, I found it useful. And then sometimes for looking for like better verbs and that kind of thing, going in and just asking it for those, it can sometimes, if I use it in a sentence, it can sometimes give me the verbs a bit better than a thesaurus can. It's just more tailored to the meaning of the sentence. So I found it helpful for that. If you kind of think of it as just like a very specific, almost search engine, kind of.
It's kind
Not
of
that
like
you
a
can
advanced
search like
Google or
recent things
something.
on there; it will give you the wrong answers. But yeah, exactly. Just tailored more to what you want, and I found that really helpful. But yeah, I think I don't know where it will go. Um, and I used it a little bit more heavily at some point, like when it first came out, trying to do things, and it just kind of took the fun out of it. I was like, first of all, I was like, gosh, I'm gonna have to edit this because it's bad
Hmm.
and it doesn't sound like me. And second of all, I'm like, but this is my story, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I think well, and so ChatGPT especially has a very kind of specific way that it writes things that I found where so
yeah.
like my wife has a dance studio, and so I've used it for things like just little sections of text on her website or something, where we just had some information. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
I just need a paragraph, and it has a very specific way, whether it's something like that or whether you use it for any other kind of writing, where it adds like overly flowery words and it's like very
Yeah.
intense with its what it writes. And so I've been doing a lot of research into how do you really engineer the prompt correctly to like give you better results. So
Mm-hmm.
my whole thought on it right now is
Yeah.
I think if you can figure out a way to use it as a tool and not to actually
Yeah.
write, I think that that's what it will be
Yeah.
great for. So like I don't believe there's ever going to be
Absolutely.
like the next Lord of the Rings is not going to be written by AI. At least not in the short term
Mm-hmm.
right now. Um
Yeah.
and so the question becomes how can you use it? And so I've thought of two use cases right now. One of them I think is really interesting. I just made a video about it. Um so the first one I think is for like learning. So similar to what you were saying about
Mm-hmm.
researching and stuff, I think another great use case is like say you're struggling with you're always writing in passive voice or something, giving it
Yeah.
that and having it help you find the flaws, like okay, how would I change this to active voice, and just using it as like not to write it for you but to
Yeah.
help you see the flaws to learn it so that you can eventually do it better on your own.
Yeah.
And even grammar, and
Yeah.
there's things like Grammarly, those have been around forever, and so I think some of that's
Yeah.
fine, but actually using it as like a learning research tool I think is a great use case.
I really like that. Yeah.
And then the other one, so I recently, they just, for ChatGPT specifically, you can do a custom GPT. So
Yeah.
basically like a specific use case for this GPT. So what I've been experimenting
Mm.
with is I basically compiled all of my notes and outlines and everything into a couple of documents. And then I uploaded those to a custom chat GPT. And I gave it very specific
And that,
rules. So I was like, you are not allowed to create anything. You can't give me any prose. You can't no suggestions, nothing. So what it becomes now is it's just like a searchable database for your story.
yeah,
So like for me, like I've got a
that's
lot of projects and it's a very long thing that I'm working through. So like there's so many details where I'm like, okay, so now I can say, give me the details of this character in this chapter. And it won't create anything. It just gives me the relevant information. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I'm experimenting with it.
that's helpful. I wonder if it could do a holy grail of things that I really want sound writing software to do, which is I want to be able to say like this character's name and have it give me all of the dialogue that the character says in a certain chunk or in a whole book or whatever. Because I want to be able to go through it for consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that would work.
Yeah, so it definitely can. And it's been really interesting to test. So like I'll bring up a character and be like, give me the general overview of this character over these 3 outlines. And it'll kind of give you or that give me the dialogue for this character in chapter 1. And it can give you all that stuff. Like it's really, it's kind of like building your own personal research assistant. So like instead of every time going to your notes and having to reread it all and find the different things you're trying to look for, it can just pull that information for you. So
that's a great use case. I might very well use that or try that out, especially for editing a movie script. You know, if it's beyond Control F, it can be hard to find certain things or look for certain consistencies. And then the documents, I never remember what anybody's wearing or what anybody's like. So something like that could be very helpful.
Yeah, and I
really like that use case.
Rules I put in there too was like, if I ask about a story point, give me like if there's any discrepancies anywhere. So like if later in the book I go against what this is earlier, make sure to note that so I can see it. So it's
I really like.
It's been helpful so far. But again, it's like it's got very strict rules of like I do not want it suggesting. Or I want all of the creation to come from me. So it's just regurgitating the things I've already created.
What you've written.